appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good. Well, animal activists from PETA have been blasted for telling farmers culling mice is a manifestation of human supremacy, as the rodent plague, of course, devastates rural areas. Now, PETA's Alicia Nexakis reckons these bright, curious animals are just looking for food to survive. They shouldn't be robbed of that right because of the dangerous notion of human supremacy. Well, the nation's agricultural minister, well, how can I put it? He didn't agree.
This just proves that PETA lives with the pixies. These people are on the fringe of society and are there for a reason. The reality is there is no way you can catch and release mice. I mean, I came home after a couple of weeks away and found them in my bed chewing my jammies. This is the reality that people in regional Australia are facing. There is a plague and there is human supremacy, and that's how we've evolved.
But to have her say, PETA's Alicia Nexakis joins me now. Alicia, you're a very brave lady, I've got to tell you, to come on this show, because I couldn't disagree with you more strongly. But can you please explain your thinking here? Because I'm just intrigued as to why you think mice rights should trump the rights of humans.
Good evening. Look, it's often said that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and the government's failure to keep mouse population in check through a long-term plan of deterrence has now left farmers struggling to protect their crops from mice who are simply struggling to eke out an existence. And PETA wants to remind everybody that mice feel pain and fear, just as the dogs and cats that we share our homes do, and just as farmers do. And if they must be killed, it is only ethical and right that it is done as painlessly as possible, not through gut-wrenching poisons that cause slow, agonising, gruelling deaths to mice and to other animals.
Okay.
That could be native or domestic animals who eat these poisons or its victims.
Okay, Alicia, that's interesting, because you obviously accept that, you know, these things need to happen, but in this case you're advocating a different form of death for these mice, and that we should have taken circumstances to cull their numbers before they got into these plague proportions. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The footage that we've all seen is horrible. This is a devastating situation with no winners involved, and nobody can deny that. But one thing is abundantly clear, and that is that the government should have done something about this a long time ago. The government has done little in all the years that mice have been in the country. And, you know, this is hardly the first time that we've seen such a spike in mouse numbers. It's very consistent to find reports of these infestations following summer rains after years of droughts. And in this particular situation, farmers have been pleading and crying out for help since the beginning of the year. So the real question here is, why hasn't the government done more or started earlier to help this through deterrent methods?
All right.
You know, it is their responsibility to come up with a better solution that does not involve a perpetual cycle of poisonings.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to bring in Senator Bridget McKenzie, who is absolutely no stranger to the realities of farm life. Bridget, you've heard what Alicia's had to say. She's basically saying we should have been culling and killing these mice before they got to plague proportions, but that kind of ignores the breeding cycle of the mouse, which they can have 10 young every 20 days or something, doesn't it?
Every 20 days. So, you know, they increase exponentially. I think, once again, we've seen from PETA their irresponsible, reckless, attention-seeking behaviour. You know, these are the guys and gals that traumatise human children by barbecuing pretend dogs in the main streets and shopping centres around the country. And the lack of empathy this organisation has shown for actual people, farmers, their wives, their kids, who are not just dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars of crop losses, wiring being eaten through, but NAPLAN results being undertaken with mice all over the computer screen, walls in their house that radiate heat from the population packed into their walls, checking on their babies at night to find them covered in mice. I mean, you know, I'm all for the baiting program. I'm all for getting this under control because I actually care about the health and well-being of Australian farmers and rural and regional communities.
Is it true, Bridget, that the ability to access the poisons that are usually used to control the mice plague and the rate of growth have been almost unavailable due to COVID restrictions? Because I understand a lot of them come out of India. Is that correct?
Yeah, there has been significant shortfalls in supply, and obviously when it's in such demand, we can't get it on the shelves quickly enough. Farmers are very, very welcoming of the New South Wales government's decision about the free baiting supplies, because we have to actually get this under control. It's not staying still. As you said, the life cycle is as it is. And PETA has to understand and back science. So you might want an eradication or deterrent strategy that doesn't include poisons. Well, what is it? We've got a rabbit fruit.
All right.
Well, Bridget, I just want to inject here and say that we're actually calling on the government and wildlife experts to look for a better solution and a better way to deal with this problem in the future. And if that makes us idiots to politicians looking for a punching bag or news organisations looking for a controversial headline, then so be it. But we are an animal rights organisation and you are the government.
Okay. Bridget, what's your response to that?
Yeah, if you don't want to be attacked for saying controversial things, don't say controversial things. It is absolutely ludicrous. I don't want to get into a debate about speciesism, because the reality is, the human beings, in my view, are actually worth more than mice, who are disease-ridden rodents, are actually destroying lives and livelihoods.
All right, now
I want to make it clear that
just a moment. I've got a question. Alicia, I've got a question for you. Alicia, I've got a question for you. What we have is a mouse plague at the moment, right? You can be critical of what's happened in the past and not enough has been done. All of that. We've heard your points there. What would you do now? Because you did advocate catch and release for these mice, which is really, it's hopelessly impractical and an insult for those whose health and livelihoods and families are at risk from these rodents.
That comment came from us being asked by a journalist what our stance is on unwanted mice, and that is our common advice when dealing with that situation in residential areas.
So how would you kill them now?
Areas. So of course that does not apply to agricultural settings, and it certainly doesn't apply to the situation that we're facing here. And look, we've said this a million times today, PETA, we are realists, we understand what needs to happen, but we are calling on the government and on wildlife experts to do their jobs and to find better solutions so that this does not continue to happen over and over again.
How should we be killing them then, these mice?
Vasectomies for male mice at the age of, 7 weeks?
Nah, well, that's completely unreasonable, isn't it? But Alicia, how would you kill these mice now? How should we be doing it?
I am not going to provide a recommendation on how to kill an animal. We are disheartened that animals have to even die, and especially in the grueling ways that the baits used cause, internal bleeding and such slow, long, agonizing deaths that can take days for the animals to die. So I'm certainly not going to recommend a way, but that is up to wildlife experts and the government to come up with better solutions, long-term solutions that do not involve a perpetual cycle of poisoning and the livelihoods and the mental
I'm going to go to Bridget now. I'm going to go to Bridget now because this is the problem. You throw the stones, you come up with all these suggestions and blame everyone else to save the life of a mouse. You acknowledge they're in plague and they're causing a huge turmoil, but you won't tell us how to fix the problem. The only way you can fix it is to kill the mice. And Senator Mackenzie, is there any alternative than to baiting them?
No, and this is what I just wanted to make a comment. I really love the role of science in policy making, and I hope we use it as much as we can. It is actually a scientific fact that the only way to get this under control is to use poison. It's not me saying it, it's actually the CSIRO. So they're the facts. I think we just need to get on with it and support our farmers who are seeing, once again, another failed crop and economic devastation not of their own making.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you both for coming on and for the respectful manner in which you've gone about this discussion. Elisa, I said at the start, I don't agree with you, and it frustrates me that we're having this discussion, but you're a brave girl for coming on, and so I really appreciate it. Bridget Mackenzie, I know you're courageous too, sticking up for people, and thank you for your time tonight, both of you.
I appreciate your time. Good evening. Thank you very much.